Okay, we're live. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 208. We're titling this Smart Home Privacy. I don't know why yet, but we have some Google announcements that lead us into the smart home and the whole realm of smart things that are not so smart and privacy and everything else. And we're going to highlight a Gizmodo article, which we usually never do, but sometimes we do. And we'll see how it works. Let's first say hi to Tom.
Hey, everyone.
So I got this idea for the smart home based on watching Google I/O's keynote yesterday. And let's first ask Tom, did you watch it, read it, do anything with it?
I basically caught the headline articles, but I really didn't have time to sit there and watch it.
So if you don't know, Tom and I actually met at Google I/O 2012. And that was the year where they gave you literally everything. Like you had 2 boxes. That was the great year.
Yeah, I got in on the student ticket, which was a very, very cheap price. And I left with a ton of hardware. It was great.
So did I. So I sold my phone, which paid for the ticket, like everything. I mean, I think I made out more. I didn't sell everything. I still have my Nexus Q and I still bought my Google Glass, and I still have my Nexus 7. I did sell the phone.
Yeah, I've still got my Q somewhere, and I know where my Google Glass is, which is incredible. I need to power it on to see if it still comes up.
So very recently, maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago, I gave my Google Glass I still have it, to a former student of mine who did some hackathon thing with it. So I met him, he took it, he borrowed it, and it was the second time he actually made an app for it. I actually had another former student who wrote a whole book on a Google Glass tutorial that I'm still waiting for some sort of royalty check. I mean, a tasty beverage would be good enough for me. I don't know how much he made off of it, but I'm sure he can send me a couple dollars here and there as a thank you for letting me borrow it all year. But so again, Google I/O has a near and dear to us, but over the last few years, Google's been, drifting further and further away from the privacy realm, and they have all these missteps. And Google I/O is very famously known for wishes they had but never actually took place. Like we talk about Google Duplex or the Google Home, like years and years ago. But yesterday, or whenever you hear this, last week at that point, they mentioned privacy a whole bunch of times, And Tom and we just want to go through it and see, do they really mean it, or is this just another thing, vaporware that they're never going to deal with?
Yeah, it's interesting. I honestly didn't see this coming out of Google I/O, out of all places. I mean, I really didn't see this coming out of Google, other than like maybe a little PR blurb, but to focus on privacy at I/O, that's pretty out of left field for them.
I think obviously, if you don't know, Google runs Chrome. Google is an ad company. So if they tell you, that they're searching, well, they're helping you search. They want you to be a better searcher so they can sell ads against your search habits. So if you didn't know that, now you do. So when Chrome is usually the last company to take any sort of blocking and stopping tracking or anything else. So that was always a bone of contention. When would Google implement, let's say, do not track? And they did eventually, but it's not easy to access. It's not easy to turn on. So for them to say, hey, we're going to take this stuff seriously and we're going to delete your data, was a big deal.
Yeah, so that is probably the key takeaway from Google I/O for me, with this auto delete functionality. Basically, you'll be able to go into your Google account settings and say, hey, Google, the data you have on me personally, go ahead and delete that after X amount of time. And the examples they gave weren't actually outlandish. They said, anywhere from like 3 months to 24 months. You just tell us to delete it, and then after that time, once the data has exceeded that date, we'll just get rid of it. Which sounds fantastic on the surface, and it is. It's a good step in the right direction. But let's be real and let's remember how Google uses this data most often. Google doesn't necessarily care. They care a little bit, but they don't really care about data on you. What they really care about is data on the everyone, on demographics, on subsets of people, on groups of people that they can target advertisements to. So when Google says they'll delete your data in 3 months, I'm sure they will. But by that time, it's already been rolled into their machine learning models. It's been rolled into their ad targeting platforms. It's been rolled into aggregates and demographics. That data, those pieces of you that aren't directly connected to your identity, but they're connected to your demographics, they'll most likely keep that stuff. Now, they've been pretty lax on the details on how this is all going to work, but I don't imagine that Google is just going to, if everyone one day turns on their delete my data functionality, they're just going to wipe you completely from the demographics database. I can't really see that working.
So let's ask this. If they get a government request for your data from, I don't know, 6 months ago, and you have it deleted every 3 months, do we know how that's going to work?
That we don't know. And, until somebody leaks it or a report comes out or there's a court case dealing with Google user data, we probably won't know for a while. It's not really something you advertise.
Correct. Look, it's I've been giving Google my data for years, and they haven't burned me yet, if that's the right call. I mean, we always hear stories. We talk about all the stories, but to me, they've just been okay. And I do try to limit it. I try to use different services when I can. But it would be good to know, hey, just do me a favor and just every 3 months, just delete everything. You want to use it to make your algorithms better. For me personally, that's fine. My threat model is not that crazy. I guess deep down, no, they should delete everything like they say they are and everything else. But you know what? If it's going to make my driving easier, I'm okay with that for the most part. If they can avoid a government request by saying, hey, we only have this 3 months of data, that's a huge plus in my book.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. If they could come out and say those exact words, yeah, I'd be a lot less angry at Google today than I usually am.
Yeah. So the other feature is incognito basically everywhere, which I think is excellent. I mean, incognito is not that hard to turn on to begin with, but you always have to remember it. And you always have to remember to pause your history or whatever it is you're driving somewhere that you don't want someone to know or to find out. Just to incognito that. Just if you can live in incognito, that would probably be a huge net positive.
I'm actually super excited about this feature for one reason and one reason only. And there have been memes all over the internet about this, for forever. I want to be able to click on a YouTube link that my idiot friends send me and not get the recommendation for the same stupid video for the rest of my life. That's all I want to do. Like, they send me like some stupid meme video that I click on once, and then it's in my YouTube recommendations forever. It's just like, hey, you watched this stupid video over here that one time when you clicked a link from somebody that you barely knew. Do you want to watch more of those videos for the rest of your life? No, Google, please. I really don't.
Doesn't YouTube have a pause history at this point?
They have a thing where you can go back into your history and clear out certain videos.
Yeah, but nobody's time for that.
Yeah, like I did that once. I cleared my YouTube history once. Honestly, at this point, I just use RSS. I just follow the people on RSS. When they put something new out, I click the link there, and I don't even go to the YouTube homepage. It's that bad.
Well, I mean, I just don't go to YouTube. I mean, I guess I'm too old for this. I am not the youngest generation. So I think that's cool because, I mean, I wonder if this makes the Pixel, which we're going to get to in a second, more of a just generic phone that, yes, runs Google stuff on it. If everything can be in incognito, basically, if you turn on, let's say, incognito for everything, Google will get the minimal amount of information. And now basically you have a branded phone, but very little information goes directly to Google.
Now, keep in mind, we don't have technical details on what incognito everywhere means, right? It could mean that the things you do in incognito mode don't flow back into your recommendation engine. That could be the end of the feature right there, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that Google doesn't get the data. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to store and track and use that in demographic ad targeting. I mean, they could do everything they wanted to as long as they don't surface that in user recommendations, and they basically followed the letter of incognito mode, right to the law. But it's still very much hearsay. We still don't have all the details on it. It sounds nice, but at this point, we don't know if it's just talk, and we don't know exactly how much more private this will make you.
I have a feeling the stuff that's not incognito everywhere is the secret sauce. I mean, the conspiracy theory in me. Remember, they eventually got. I remember Google got in Gmail. They got rid of the ads on the right side because it didn't matter. Like in individual messages, they said it wasn't giving us exactly what we needed. So why bother? But yet, if you move from inbox like me, you were severely disappointed that Gmail actually has ads in it at the top,
Yep.
and that was a big letdown for me. But you tend to ignore it. But I guess in Google's best interest, if they see what works, that's what they're going to harbor on. And if they're seeing that incognito everywhere will make it a net positive for everyone without limiting what they can grab, that's probably what they're going to do.
I think Google is really following suit here for the most part. You see, Facebook has been in the news a lot for all their privacy breaches and everything they've messed up on, and accidentally logging passwords in plain text. Like, there's a lot of reasons that privacy is very much on everyone's mind right now, and it's because it's basically been completely eroded. So what a company can do from a PR standpoint is try to get ahead of this and say, it's privacy first. Even Facebook is doing this. We talked about the expose by Mark Zuckerberg saying that Facebook needs to move to a privacy first platform. And it could be that Google doesn't actually care about this stuff. They just want the PR message. Now, I don't want to put words in their mouth, but we just don't know, right? I don't work at Google, and even if I did, I couldn't speak on their behalf.
The next thing was ease of access. Let's see. Ease of access and federated data. But basically, I'm losing it. Federated learning, they claim, we'll come back to the other one. But federated learning is they're trying to figure out how to almost, it almost sounds like they're trying to de-anonymize you, and they're trying to train with machine learning what's the important stuff to send to them. And they're going to do this on the device, which I guess is a good thing. So instead of everything you search for, if you're looking for a particular topic, they're going to send that topic, again, like Tom was saying, to get the collective, not the individual, which, you know what? Anything to de-anonymize me, I don't mind giving them generic millennial information, but that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's I think it's good. It's nice. We'll see how useful it actually is, and we'll see if this has an impact on phone battery life. Because now, if they're literally just stripping away the data that Google doesn't need and only sending the stuff that it does need, that's great, because it's less data to send, it's less processing, right? It's good all across the board for resource management and privacy. But if what they're doing is actually doing inference and learning on the device itself, and then sending the resultant model or data back to Google, that could have a negative effect on battery life, on phone performance. Like, there's a lot of questions here that we just don't know how it's going to work. It sounds good though.
So the big thing that everyone wanted, and I don't think they got exactly, was people wanted individualized permission revocation. So I download an app and say, I don't want it to. I wanted periodic reminders. Hey, I wanted to use my location to get where I am. Let's say the weather app. I want to store that, but that's it. Then I want to revoke location. There is no way necessarily to do that. People were talking about that. They're saying here now that you can, but not exactly. So you can change it to say only use this when I'm currently using the app. Only use location while I'm currently using it. Specifically talking to, remember when Uber, like 20 minutes after, would still have your location, or other things that will periodically check in if it's running in the background. They'll find some low memory state to remember data or whatever it is. So this is saying only use certain permissions while I'm in the app. Like I said, I really wish it was I can revoke permissions in real time inside the app, but not yet.
Yeah, so that's a really nice feature. I wish it were exposed, or even even available to the general public in Android. So I just recently moved to an iPhone. If you're in our WhatsApp group, which you should totally join, you would have known that by now. But inside of settings here, I've got Google Maps pulled up in settings. For location, I can just shut that off. There, never. I can also say, yeah, only use location when I'm inside the app. And the operating system enforces this. This is something that Google needs to just wholesale copy from Apple. It's not super granular, but I can do things like disable notifications, which you can do in Android today. But the location thing, that's huge for me. The being able to say, this app can I allow it to access my microphones? Yes, this one time. And then I can go to settings and shut it off again. It's great. And occasionally the operating system will actually say, hey, just to let you know, this app is using your location. You allowed it to use your location. Do you still want to allow it to use your location? And gives you an easy button to say, nah, I totally forgot to turn that on. It was a one-time thing. Go ahead and cut off its access. And it just works. It's wonderful. It's a little bit harder on developers because they do have to build in user flows for, do I have permission? Do I not have permission? What features can I use? What stuff can I not use? And kind of work around it. But ultimately, it's better for the user.
I mean, Apple does permissions better. It is asking for permission is very obnoxious to a lot of people, especially if you don't know why they're asking it. I always get a call from the less tech savvy. Why is this asking to use my microphone? What is it doing? And what should I say? And I said, for the most part, you generally should say yes, but think about why would it need your microphone? I would have to explain to them and situation them and say, hey, Google Maps needs your location because literally its job is to provide you mapping data. Like you need to have location on.
Why does voice recorder need my microphone?
Yeah.
This is outlandish.
Basically, like are they sending stuff? Or I mean, it's probably more so like why does voice recorder need my location? And the answer is it probably doesn't. But what it's probably doing is figuring out where you were with your date and time and things like that. That's probably what they're doing. So if you want to get rid of that, the app should still work. But again, dealing with permissions mid-app must be very difficult to deal with.
Yeah, it's definitely more difficult to code around because on Android, it used to be just they asked you when you installed it and that was it. But now they can selectively ask and you can deny permissions as they come on, which has been the case for Apple for a long while now. But it is interesting to see the differences and how both platforms manage permissions. Honestly, I like the iOS way way better. I think it's more convenient, it's more user friendly, it's more privacy focused. When I went to take a picture, it said, hey, we want to geotag this photo. Do you want us to allow location? I said, yeah, that's great. Because I want to be able to look at a map and see where I've taken pictures because I do a lot of traveling. And it was great. It was a really user-centric way to prevent or to post that notification dialogue.
It's like I said, for me, I usually deal with the less tech savvy where every time they get a pop-up, they have to ask a question. I think my mother brought me her phone with like 3 warning messages. You have used too much data this month. Now she's on an unlimited plan, but she kept that notification for like 3 or 4 days just to show me. The next thing is it was always been a problem with Android is modular security updates. So since Android came about, all these low-end phones would never update. And this was a big thing. They promised 18-month update cycles. They did this. Nothing works. Nothing still works. So our recommendation was always either buy directly from Google or look at the update history. And it was basically Samsung was the other Android provider that was at least like respectable. And Google had all these things. If you want the Play Store, you need this many updates, but they still weren't getting updates every month. So Google said, you know what? We're going to do it in the Play Store. Now, if you heard this, yes, they did this about 5 years ago in the Play Store, but now they're doing more of it. They listed 14, I think, different things that they're now doing in the Play Store to at least patch it. These are not feature requests. These are not things that the user is generally going to see. These are just safety and privacy measures inside the Play Store, which is, I guess, as good as you're going to do other than forcing people to update.
Yeah, I really like the idea of modular security updates. I think it'll make the general fact that we always have to patch everything all the time, it decreases the friction just a little bit, which honestly is way, way better. So for some things that aren't, core operating system stuff, you could just hot patch it. You could patch it, swap in one, swap out the other, and you're done. Right? You don't have to reboot the phone. There's a lot of nice things that can come out of hot patching. That said, there's a lot of issues that can come out of hot patching. So let's hope that the Google QA stuff, or the Google QA team is ready to do a whole lot of testing on this.
And then cookie and fingerprints. I mean, I hope they don't constantly ask you if you accept these cookies, but I'm just hoping that they're going to delete them. That's all I want.
So they're going to force HTTPS for any cross-domain cookie, which is fantastic. It is absolutely wonderful. Other than that, I mean, it's good. It needs to happen. They're going to do a little bit more to try to prevent browser fingerprinting. So they're trying to decrease tracking by anyone who's not Google. It's good. It's an incremental update for sure. I don't think this is revolutionary. I don't know.
I mean,
nice.
Then you have randomized MAC addresses, which, okay, you should have been doing that as,
I don't know why this was even included, because, I mean, randomized MAC addresses has been a feature for Android for a while, unless they removed it for some reason. But basically, if you weren't on a trusted network, it just randomized it.
I mean, I have a feeling it was just one of those things that it was an afterthought, and somebody realized, hey, wait a second, we're not randomizing MAC addresses, and we can make that a feature. But
so let's talk about why that's important. If you have Wi-Fi turned on, your phone is constantly broadcasting, pinging for no network, saying, hey, are you Bob's home network? And if you're not at Bob's home network, no one responds. You hope no one responds, right? But when your phone is throwing out these pings and asking, basically just the Wi-Fi air, hey, can I connect to anything here? Occasionally, people will put in trackers. Retail stores do this a lot, so they can actually track people walking around the store and figure out what aisles they stop at, what end caps they're looking at for long periods of time, what sale items are they shopping at. So what this will do, instead of saying, this is Bob's phone, we know that because his MAC address is in this packet he keeps sending out, they're just going to completely randomize it. So when you're walking through a store, it's going to look like a whole lot of different devices, and there are still other ways to track that kind of stuff, but it's not going to be as easy. And as we all know, with security, the more barriers you put in front of something, it's all about defense in depth. The harder you can make it for somebody to track you or hack you or get at your data, the better it is for everyone.
And so the good news with a lot of these security features is that these are going way back in the Android operating system. So the Play Store, as long as you have the Play Store, you should be. So these are all. Oh, I just misspoke. These are all Android Q improvements, at least some of these. But the stuff that they can put in the Play Store, they're going to port it back. So any older phone you have, because like we said, Google sees that people are not updating, so they have to find a way. So they're using the Play Store and the Play components to do it. So while you're not getting everything with, let's specifically Android Q, like the new notifications, you are getting the other stuff like the randomization and the delete everywhere and everything else. And then I don't want to jump into the smart home with what is it? We have about 6 minutes left, but we'll just say Google is now folding Nest fully integrated into them. And the big takeaways is Nest used to be a separate company. They did the thermostat, which for the most part, I give one thumb up. I don't think it's the best one, but I don't think it's the worst one. If you want a simple thermometer, it works really well. And if you can get it on sale, it's even better. But they were a company. They had lots of problems. Google bought them out. They said they're going to do something. Now they folded it in. And what they said is, sorry, third-party developers, you have to work with us now. And we don't know what that means, but it sounds like it's going to be a problem.
So Google is deprecating the Works with Nest API. So if you were an Internet of Things developer, or really any developer, and you use the Works with Nest API to put out an on-the-shelf product, or a software product, or a piece of open source software, whatever you're putting out that works with Nest, as it says on the tin, that's going away at the end of August 31st. They are shutting that off. Instead, Google is going to completely replace it with their own Google API. So yeah, they are deprecating stuff out from under the feet of developers with very little notice.
So
what this means for IoT devices is that if you have an IoT device that works with Nest and the company is not supporting it, it's not updated, it's not under warranty, like there's a lot of reasons why your devices won't get updates. Basically, one day it's just gonna stop working the way it should. It's gonna lose its Nest functionality, and depending on the way that developer handled, an API going away, it could either mean that the stuff just doesn't work with Nest anymore, or the thing just doesn't work at all.
And again, the sad part is this is the second time people have been screwed by this, because the first one was Revolve. We talked about this about, I don't know, a year and a half ago, where magically they said, we're not even open sourcing this. This is done. You can't do anything. And they eventually settled and said, hey, I think they open sourced it and no new updates, but it's maintenance mode. They're just going to let it go until you decide to give up. But this is the second time they're doing that to people.
And so this is actually way more than the second time.
In this case.
Yeah, for this exact case. I have a confession. I had developed on Google's platform a while ago, and using their APIs, using their services, right? It was Google. It was all shiny and nice and wonderful, and they loved open source, and they'd never heard a developer, and they yanked the rug out from under me like 4 times. In some cases, like the Maps API is a perfect example. Instead of yanking the rug out from under people, they just changed the pricing model. What used to cost like $30 for a website using the Maps API could cost, depending on usage, up to $10K just overnight. Yep, we're changing it. Sorry, guys. Hope you didn't miss the email, but you now owe us $10,000. And Google has a pattern of doing this. As much as Google kills their public services off, they kill off and change and manipulate APIs far, far more often than they kill off consumer products, if you can believe that. This is why a lot of developers right now are going away from Google. This is actually one of the reasons that Google's APIs, whenever they put out something new, people don't really flock to it like they used to. They're kind of standoffish. They're like, yeah, if I have to, I'll use this, but otherwise, nah, there's no way.
So I was telling Tom I had my garage door opener, so that could connect Works with Nest. So it would see that Nest would see that the garage door open and then turn on the heating or cooling. I never connected it because I don't know, 10 feet away from my door. What is it going to do in the next 30 seconds? I guess if your garage door opened, it would connect to the Nest and then maybe turn on your lights or whatever else. I mean, there was a few different things, but I didn't see a huge Works with Nest code base there that people are losing out. I think it's more of just the idea that what did work now may not work. And if you're an early adopter of IoT things, one, you spent a lot of money, but the second thing is now it's starting to come home. And now we have like real problems. And again, I don't want to have this as an IoT podcast because there's more to it in the next minute that we can talk about. But it's just one of those things that, oh, you had that and now it's not working. And that's not going to be cool. It's the lock-in that you need to have all these Google Assistant type things, which is a problem.
Yeah, I completely agree. One of the main reasons I jumped to iOS wasn't necessarily for the privacy or security stuff. Like, that's a huge benefit, and it totally factored into my decision. But the main reason I jumped from Android is that I just don't want Google to kill anything else I love. I'm actively de-Googling my life because, who knows what disappears next? I mean, Google Plus is dead because they didn't want to cause a PR storm because they had a massive security issue for 6 months. They killed off Google Inbox because reasons. I I don't want to wake up one day and have my phone just say, "Yep, it's over. Thanks for all the fish."
Well, that's the biggest problem is you and I have been burned more than a lot of other people. Most people use Gmail, they're happy with it. They use Google, they're happy with it. They may or may not have some sort of Android device, but aside from that, they don't see all these little things that, hey, we jumped on the bandwagon for Inbox or for this or for that.
Or for Google
And-
Glass.
Or for Google Glass, or there's a whole killed with Google or something like that website. But just a lot of different Google Reader,
Google Reader
Fi-
hurt me.
Google Finance, which was Google Wave, all these little things. Just
Google
went-
Fiber is basically dead.
So it's like Tom and I are just hoping that Google Voice stays. Like that's our livelihood. The Google Voice stays, and we're just afraid that that's going to end next because they never made money to begin with. But it's not a moneymaker, so we're done with it. That's what we're afraid of.
Yeah, I think it's only a matter of time before everyone's favorite service goes away. Just depends on when.
So anyway, that's it. We do want to have a real smart home discussion. Let's see it may not be a little bit right now. We'll wait till a little later to see what works with Nest actually means and let people have Android Q come out and some more details. But that is definitely a podcast because, like I said, I'm the one who's smart homing my entire house and learning a lot of different things to share. So anyway, we will end and we'll see you next week.
If you would like to talk to somebody who just literally last week jumped from Android to iOS, join our WhatsApp group, and I'm happy to answer any and all questions.
That's a good idea. Message us. Best way to do is tweet us at In30. We'll get you in. Okay, everyone. Have a good night.
See you, everyone.